교수님이 City and Arts Governance라는 제목으로 사실 이 자리에 같이 발제를 해주시면 좋겠지만 영상을 만들어서 보내주셨습니다. 영상 아래에 자막 작업이 다 되어 있으니 여러분들이 충분히 공감을 하시면서 보실 수 있을 것 같습니다. 자, 그러면 두 번째 발제로 남호주대학 루스 랜슬러 교수님의 발제를 시청하시도록 하겠습니다.
Arts governance. That's the topic of today's presentation. My name is Ruth Rentschler. I'm the Professor of Arts and Cultural Leadership at the University of South Australia Business School. In today's presentation, what I propose to do is to give you an understanding of governance in the context of arts and culture, but which may have relevance for city governance or indeed non-profit governance generally. Let's have a look at the aim of today's presentation. We're going to examine arts governance in iconic non-profit arts organisations as case studies located in creative cities such as Adelaide and Melbourne in Australia, where I live, that were traditionally manufacturing cities which needed to reinvent themselves using the arts, cultural tourism, hospitality and the creative industries as their locus of change. This keynote address will include learnings and insights from the more than 100 interviews that I've done with people on arts boards, as well as from reading numerous biographies and autobiographies of arts leaders who sat on boards. On the left-hand side, you can see Leonard French. He was disenchanted with the time he spent on arts boards and stepped down from that role, even though they were prominent boards. I'd like to show you in this presentation and share with you how we can make sure that we don't fall into some of the traps that he fell into. Well, why examine arts governance? On a worldwide setting, there have been some real problems in arts governance. For one thing, the world's dirty little secret, which was hushed up for too long, starting with Harvey Weinstein in movies in America. That was about inappropriate behaviour. And he was not only a film producer, but sat on entertainment boards and had to step down as a result of the problems that he had in behaving inappropriately. This is to do with strategy, accountability, risk, financial concerns, and achieving a balance between performance and conformance, the issues that we're going to talk about today. So the question I came up with was, how can arts governance help organisations in the arts and in other areas such as city governance, non-profits, reinvent themselves? Let's start by defining arts governance. The word governance came from the Latin verb gubernare, originally from the Greek kubernein, which means to steer or give direction. I'll come back to steering in a moment. There's also the French word gouvernance, which means to govern, rule and command, and our governance takes part of that meaning as well. There are formal and informal structures, dynamics and processes that exist in these oversight roles and responsibilities on boards in various organisational contexts. But to use a boating metaphor, arts board directors and others who are directors on boards steer, not row. The rowing is done by the executive and operational paid staff. The steering is done by the board. How can arts governance be enhanced then? It can be enhanced for 4 reasons: by engagement with strategy and the board CEO's shared leadership, by inter and intra-organisational relationships, by partnering and power sharing outside the organisation, so important to the non-profit arts, and by developing strategic direction, what's called the vision thing. We'll talk about those things today. So arts governance in Australia, at least from the research I have done, shows 5 things that are important if you're going to be successful. One is that arts board directors have passion. And that passion comes from a love of the arts or working in the arts. It could be you're an artist, a violinist, a dancer, a hip-hop artist, whatever it might be, and you bring that passion for the arts with you onto the board. Second, arts board directors also need business skills. Indeed, in governance, management, marketing, event management, finance, law, project management, fundraising, so important in these days of uncertainty. Without business skills, arts organisations are perceived by others as elitist, inward-looking, bureaucratic, and lacking public support. So it's very important if you want to engage the community. Furthermore, arts board directors need to be entrepreneurial when it's uncertain how much money you can get from government anymore, and you need to bring in money from other sources, philanthropists, sponsors, ticket prices, car parks, cafes, and so on. In other words, arts board directors need balance between business and artistic approaches, between strategy and operations, in a range of ways in the types of art performances that are put on. And we'll talk about these things. So arts board directors' passion gives directors the motivation to drive through success in uncertain times. As someone I interviewed said to me, passion drives most arts board directors. It certainly isn't the money. It's love of the arts, and love is about passion. Most art board directors have a connection, either as an artist or as a lover of the arts. Arts board directors' passion is important, but it is a two-edged sword, as one of my informants told me. It needs to be managed by rational discourse and enlightened thought. And if it's not handled properly and harnessed appropriately, it can blind people to doing the better good for the organisation. In other words, you need to be passionate, but you need to challenge. It's a tough love philosophy so that people can achieve more. And it's a combination of passion, tough love, and tough business reality checking. You need to be prepared to tell people things they need to know and need to hear, but don't want to hear. In business skills, the director of the Arts Gallery of the National Gallery of Victoria, Dr. Jerry Vaughan, said to me, you need to be a serious professional, and in art museums, a serious art historian, with a wide range of interests, with business savvy, so necessary in an era of arts corporatisation, but respectful of the roles played by marketers and funders. After all, they bring in the audiences and the money from different sources. Let's have a look at how strategy is undergone in one arts organisation where I sat on the board, the Art Gallery of Ballarat, the best regional gallery in Australia. They started with their vision, where they wanted to inspire, stimulate and challenge through art. And their mission was to foster and enrich cultural life, notably in the city of Ballarat, a regional city 1 hour's drive from Melbourne, the capital city of Victoria. Now this is important because Ballarat saw that it could improve the finances of the city, the reputation of the city, the promotion of the city, using the arts as the vehicle. They were driven by their values and their focus on building for the future. And they did that by focusing on strategic priorities. Let me share with you 3 strategic priorities. Firstly, building relationships. This was done both inside and outside the organisation, through philanthropy, through stakeholders, and through dealing with people at all different levels out in the wider community. The second strategic priority was building the footprint of the gallery, making it larger by buying a building on the main city street next to the gallery. And this would again bring in more people to the gallery, make it better known, and bring in more money. And thirdly, by inspiring exhibition programs that brought people in not only from Ballarat, a regional city, and other cities in that region, but also drew them from Melbourne, the capital city, 1 hour drive away. And this was by having exhibition programs that appealed to different types of audiences. So the strategic focus overcomes the tendency on some boards to be inward-looking, which can be a mishmash of self-interested groups, as one interviewee told me. It brings in outsider viewpoints, not always welcome, but necessary because they see things differently. And thirdly, it ensures that people face reality. There's that passion quote again, where they're combining passion with tough love and a tough business reality check, so that people hear things they don't want to hear and then act on them, of course. And finally, that they liaise with the community. Galleries are the heart and soul of the community, as are other arts organisations. And if you're not connecting with the community, you're not doing your job in the non-profits. So Arts Board directors strive for strategic insight, a diversity of funding sources, balance between, for example, popular shows and in art museums, scholarly shows. In the ballet, it might be popular Cinderella or Swan Lake, and Twyla Tharp's contemporary dance choreographed by the New York choreographer, which would never bring the large audiences, but will always have a key niche audience, and is cross-subsidised by the popular shows. Developing business skills is the fourth one. Understanding the art form is the fifth. Developing people is the sixth. And that means that Arts Board directors are drivers of change. And if you're prepared to change in uncertain times, your organisation is much more likely to be sustainable in the long term. Now, let's have a look at that concept of balance. Moffat Oxenbould, the artistic director of Opera Australia, wrote in his book that one of the most influential and important things that an artistic director can do of his standing is to have a system of proving the plans that he put forward based on the simple principle of balance. And he balanced things in a number of ways, through the productions, through the artist's work, through the audience getting different things to see and enjoy, and providing repertory or new productions that gave people different roles to play in. So those sorts of things are taken to the board for approval and discussion. And it's important to consider balance as a wide-ranging concept. The importance of balance led me to develop a theory of balance, strategic balance, for Arts Board directors and their boards, which I call CREATE. And let's have a look at what this means at a board level. It means that on the one hand, you've got performance with our strategic focus. On the other hand, conformance to do with accountability, risk and finances with an operational focus. And then the CREATE acronym spells out the things that the board does. Crafts strategy, realises management processes, examines relational strategic decisions. And on the conformance side, is accountable, has tempered arts knowledge, harnessing the passion so that it doesn't boil over and become destructive, and being an engaged leader who understands people. So in a balancing act, there's a tolerance range, and that tolerance range ensures that you can move between conformance and performance. It doesn't have to balance out, but it seesaws so that you get it right by flexing and pivoting as needed. So thinking of a board you may have in your city, or you may be wishing to establish for your foundation perhaps, what focus is your board giving to each of the aspects of performance and conformance? Are they in balance, or do they need tweaking? Let's have a look now at entrepreneurship. It also comes from the French, where it was originally meant as a director or manager of a public music institution, one who gets up entertainments. Now it's used much more broadly, and it's used in a whole range of ways in business, non-profits, and indeed in the arts, taking it back to its roots. So entrepreneurial Arts Board directors interact with the environment, identifying issues that are important to them, overcoming the problems of limited funding, and innovating in ways of bringing in money, of putting on programs that appeal to different audiences. so that they are doing things that are matters of urgent need of attention. Thinking about the city of Gumi, where does it sit on the arts governance seesaw, for example, to do with balance? How will the city of Gumi, if it establishes a foundation board, be structured? Will it be representational, that is, representing geographic areas from South Korea? Will it be skills-based, identifying people to come on the board who have skills in finance, fundraising, and marketing and so forth? Or will it be political, putting politicians who are elected individuals on the board from the national forum and from the local forum? Or will it be a mix of all three, which is a fourth category, and I've seen boards that do those things as well. This is a very important question because it can lead to success or failure depending on the type of people you have on your board. And an activity for you to reflect on, thinking about people's passion and how that may present on arts boards. How would you harness people's passion to make sure that passion was going to work for the good of the organisation and the board, rather than breaking down into negatives, fighting, bitching, destructive behaviour? Therefore, one of my concluding thoughts is that arts governance is an integrated concept. It's to do with performance and conformance meshing, so that the strategic and the operational sides balance, and you therefore have an integrated form of governance. I'm sure you have questions, and please feel free to email me, and I'd be very happy to answer them. My book on arts governance is still available. You can get it online as an e-book. Thank you for your audience today. I'm privileged to have been invited to speak to you, and I very much look forward to hearing from you again.
네, 남부주대학교 류수현 교수의 발제를 들으셨습니다.